heaven for these gods around the world. There is a throne that you sit on, and King of kings and Lord of lords is who you are. And we praise you for that. Ask you to bless our service this morning, beginning right here in this class. I ask you, Lord, to reveal yourself to these people that we have mentioned for prayer. Lord, the only thing we can do is bring people to you like children bring broken toys to their parents for repair. That's all we can do. And we bring these names and these families and these individuals into your presence. And our prayer is that you would meet them at the level of their need. Thank you for what you'll do in Jesus' name. Amen. The Bible is full of people who believed in God. They worshiped God. They prayed. They gave. They did all the stuff they were supposed to do. And yet they took a nosedive into absolute moral, physical, and spiritual disaster. I'm talking about people that started off right. We think, at least, they started off right. And unfortunately, they would fit in with a lot of churchgoers today. Being in the right place doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to do the right thing. You know, there's a wrong crowd in every church. I was principal of our Christian school up in Kissimmee back years ago, and we had about 500 students in our school. It was a Christian school operated by Lock Haven Baptist Church. We had Christian teachers. All of them were members of the church. And we had a wrong crowd in that school. We had kids that would cheat on their test, rebel against their mom and dad. I'm talking about folks that were members of our church. And then, of course, there were other students that weren't. But, you know, they attempted to do something in public that they weren't in private. You know, that was one of the problems. And here are some folks, and then we're going to look specifically at one gentleman this morning. But let me just give you 3 examples of some lessons we can learn. For instance, Cain teaches you how to deal with anger. You remember, he was angry at his brother. He was angry at God. Now, anger is a legitimate emotion if it is directed at an appropriate focus. Jesus got angry, but it was appropriate. It had an appropriate focus. It had an appropriate expression. And Cain's anger was at none of these things. None of it was appropriate. He got mad, he got angry, and it came to head in a family worship service, and it ended with the first murder in human history. He got mad and didn't know what to do with it, and so he blamed his brother and killed his brother. So Cain teaches me, deal with your anger. Number 2, Esau teaches us to establish true values. He was surrounded by privilege. He was surrounded by priceless gifts of God that were given to him, and he failed to see the value of these things, and so he sold his birthright because he was hungry. That was a bad deal. That was an awful bargain that he made. The physical was more important than the spiritual to him, and as a matter of fact, that deal is, you can trace the hatred between the Jew and the Arab back to that deal right there. They think that they were the oldest son. And they did have their blessing stolen. That's true. And so they think that they are the chosen people and not the Jew. And so that's kind of the heart of this whole problem. And so Esau teaches, establish true values. In life, you've got the physical and you've got the spiritual. Always choose the spiritual, because the spiritual takes care of the physical. The physical doesn't take care of the spiritual. Then there was a guy by the name of Balaam. And y'all remember Balaam. Balaam teaches us to live what you believe. Things were going really, really good for Israel. They'd been released from Egypt. You know the story. They were winning every battle. They were undefeated and going to the playoffs. I mean, they were just doing great guns. And they had been wandering for quite a while, and then they started making some pretty good progress, but they weren't in the promised land yet. They were still on their way. And one of the reasons, and we're studying this in the book of Ezekiel on Sunday night, matter of fact, we're going to look at it tonight. Israel was surrounded by other nation states, Moab and Edom and some that just hated Israel. And they didn't treat them right. When they were coming out of Egypt, they needed access to their land. And one of the nations said, nope, you're not coming through here. And so anyway, we'll get into that tonight. But they were on the east side of Jordan. They'd experienced some significant victories in that area. And in Numbers chapter 21, look at verse number 33. Numbers 21:33. They turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og, the king of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to the battle at Edrei. And the Lord said unto Moses, fear them not, for I have delivered them into thy hand, and all his people, in his land, and thou shalt do to him as thou didst unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, which dwelt at Heshbon. So they smote him, and his sons, and all his people, until there was none left him alive, and they possessed his land. Now, Balak was the king of Moab. He was next in line. Now, we've just read to you in verses 31 through 35, Israel walked through these people like water. Now, you realize that they weren't warriors. They learned to fight. They learned to make weapons. They came out of Egypt. They didn't have weapons. They had bracelets and earrings, but they didn't have any weapons, and so they had to make those things, and they had to learn how to fight. And so we've got now the next country in line between Israel and their promised land is in chapter 22. And so this is Moab. And look at verse 1. The children of Israel set forward and pitched in the plains of Moab on this side Jordan by Jericho. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was sore afraid of the people, because they were many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. Now, Balak, who is the king of Moab, is justifiably horrified. Israel has not lost a battle. They have walked through these little nomadic pagan states, one after another, after another, after another, and he is aware that he is absolutely no match for Israel. He's aware of that. So, verse number 4, they have a staff meeting. Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now shall this company lick up all that are round about us, as the ox licketh up the grass in the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. And so we have no chance. Militarily, we're done. They're going to come in here and they're going to eat us like a cow eats grass. And so he abandons the natural. We can't match them sword for sword, man for man. So let's step into another arena and see if we might have a chance to defeat them supernaturally. Naturally, we don't have a chance. So here's what happens. He gets a committee of men, and he gives them an assignment to travel over 400 miles to the north of his country and contact a preacher by the name of Balaam. Now, Balaam was not part of the Jewish community that was traveling out of Egypt. All right? He's way up north. How in the world did this man, who was 400 miles north of Moab, come to know who the Lord was? Well, I think the answer to that is when Abraham passed through that part of the country, when he came from Ur of the Chaldees and he went up to the top of the Fertile Crescent, and the Lord was leading him down into the land where he would eventually settle. Apparently, while he waited there in Haran, you remember his father died, and they had to wait for a while for him to die. And so Haran means delay, and so he was delayed there. And I think there's more than likely, it's the only answer that I can come up with, that he won some of those people to worship the true God, and this guy was one of them. Now, look at verse number 5. So, he sends messengers, therefore, unto Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor. Now, that is over 400 miles north of Moab, right next to the Euphrates River. And Pethor was like Lemon Grove. I mean, there was nothing to it. Nothing. It was a wrinkle on the side of the road. A few houses, and that was it. Which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, to call him, saying, Behold, there is a people come out from Egypt. Behold, they cover the face of the earth, and they abide over against me. Come now, therefore, I pray thee, curse me this people. See, I can't beat them. I can't kill them. So I need you to curse them. So he steps out of the physical into the area of the spiritual here. And he says, you need to curse these people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I wot that he whom thou blessed is blessed, and he whom thou cursed is cursed. Wow. The guy had a pretty good reputation. How Balak found out about Balaam 400 miles away, I don't know. They didn't have internet. That's a long way. Now, whether he was just making this up to kind of schmooze him, I don't know. But he said, here's what I've heard about you, buddy. So I have heard that whoever you bless is blessed. And whoever you curse is cursed, and it's lights out. And so he was building him up a little bit. And he's saying this now to Balaam through these messengers. And he says, what I want you to do, I want you to come down, and there's a bunch of people to the south of me. They've stopped at the edge, and we're getting ready to fight, and we can't beat them. So I need you to come and just pronounce a curse on them. Now, I don't...
Didn't they have runners that you send a runner?
Oh, yeah, this group of messengers, I don't know if they ran or not, but they got up there 400 miles away, if they rode horses or camels or what. Yeah. And so here's the situation. We've got an actual prophet of God here. Now, there are two things that we know about Balaam. Number one, he knew the God of the Bible. However that happened, and it had to have been, and that we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, because Israel has been in Egypt for 400 years, and Abraham was before that, and so you're talking about generation after generation after generation of people knew the Lord up here in Pethor, and they got, oh my word, look at here, come on in. Jack and Betty are back. Wonderful. And how he heard about the God of the Bible, we're not completely sure. The only thing that does make sense is Abraham traveling up through there. So he knew the God of the Bible. Number two, we know that he had tremendous, remarkable spiritual gifts. We do know that. He was a prophet, which means that he spoke the transmitted word of God, and he apparently was effective. And Balak had heard that some 400 miles away. By the way, you might think nobody knows about your faithfulness, and that's not why we're faithful, is so people will know about it. You don't do the right thing so you'll be recognized for the right thing. You don't get a trophy for this. That's not what we're doing. You do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And God will see to it that your name is put in the right places. He will see to it that your faithfulness. When I was at the school when it was in Lakeland, I had a young man in class one day, and he wanted to be this world-shaking preacher and wanted to be known and well-known and everything. And he was asking me one day, he said, how do you get known? And he asked this in class. And he said, how do you get known as a preacher? I said, you want to know how to get known as a preacher? He said, yes, sir, I do. I said, get you a Sunday school class in your church, or get you a bus route, and be there every week. Teach faithfully. Be a faithful supporter of your pastor. And he didn't like that answer. He wanted to know how to get his name out there. But, you know, faithfulness has a way of making its way to the right people's ears, you know. And again, that's not why you're not faithful because of that. But anyway, this delegation travels. Now, they come not empty-handed, folks. They come with a little bit of a signing bonus, okay? Now, look at verse number 7. And the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the rewards of divination. They got a big check. Yeah, they got a check in their hand. And they came unto Balaam and spake unto him the words of Balak. Balak wants you to come down here and spit a curse all over these people so we can defeat them and all this kind of stuff. And by the way, we got a check. We got a big check. That's more money than this poor preacher had ever seen in his life. Where was he from? He was Pethor. He was a Pethorite. I doubt you've ever heard of Pethor. It was a bathroom on the side of the road is what it was. This guy he doesn't have 2 nickels to rub together. And now here comes this commission from the king with this great big check waving it in front of him. Let's see what he does. Verse 8. They said unto him, or he said unto them, lodge here this night. Okay, you guys spend the night. Come on in, guys. And I will bring you word again, as the Lord shall speak unto me. And the princes of Moab abode with Balaam. He said, I'll tell you what, guys. We're in Numbers 22. Why don't y'all just spend the night? You know, I got enough room here, and y'all spend the night, and I'll pray about this thing, okay? So, God came unto Balaam and said, what men are these with thee? Now, God knew who they were, by the way. The purpose of the question was, you do realize who you're dealing with, right? Who are these guys? Oh, they're commissioners from, oh, yeah. You know, that was supposed to be the impact on this preacher. And Balaam said unto God, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, hath sent unto me, saying. All right, now he's telling God why these guys are there. Behold, there's a people come out of Egypt, which covereth the face of the earth. Come now, curse me them. Peradventure I shall be able to overcome them and drive them out. Do you think God knew who he was talking about, by the way? You know? In other words, these guys have come up and Lord, they've got this really big signing bonus. Just, you know, I could pay off my chariot and I could buy some new camels and all this. And he's all he wants me to do, I don't have to lift a hand. All I got to do is curse them. This people. He didn't even say they were Jews. He didn't say the people of Israel. He just said this people. Well, he tells God that's why they're here. Verse 12. God said unto Balaam, thou shalt not go with them. Okay. Everybody got the answer? Can I go? Thou shalt not go. Thou shalt not curse the people, for they are blessed. There's the answer to his prayer. End of story, right? Balaam wakes the guys up in the morning and says, guys, y'all need to go to the house. Well, let's see what. That should be the end of the story. When you get an answer, should that not be the end of the story? Well, let's see what happens. Look at verse 13. Balaam rose up in the morning and said unto the princes of Balak, get you into your land. So far, I like his answer. And the Lord refuseth to give me leave to go with you. Now, once again, should that not have been the end of the story? Should we not now have chapter 23? And the princes of Moab rose up, and they went unto Balaam and said, Balaam refuseth to come with us. I want you to understand, evil doesn't give up easily. You understand? The opportunity to do wrong, you say, well, I resisted that temptation. I got victory over that on Thursday. Well, guess what's going to happen Friday and Saturday? It will not give up. Let's read the rest of the story. Balak sent yet again princes more and more honorable than they. See, he didn't even send the A team. He sent the bench warmers. Now he sent the starters. He's got some folks with some sure enough, some shake 'em, and these are some really important people. And they came to Balaam, and by the way, they had a bigger check. So they come to Balaam and said, well, understand that, the last guys that came, you wouldn't come. And, they had a check. Now, we've got this Publishers Clearinghouse 4-foot check, $5,000 a week the rest of your life deal. You know what I'm saying? He's got, this is crazy rich that he could be. So, verse 16. They came to Balaam and said to him, thus saith Balak, the son of Zippor, let nothing, I pray thee, hinder thee from coming to me. I don't care what God said. I don't care what he said. Get up here. I need you up here. I need you to curse these people, for I will promote thee unto very great honor. You understand that nobody can promote you to honor if God does not want you to be honored in that way. He's not going to do anything for him but create a train wreck in his life. And I will do whatsoever thou sayest unto me. Come, therefore, I pray thee, curse me, this people. Now, this is the second time I've asked you. First time I offered you a pretty good signing bonus, and you said no. Now I'm asking you again. These are the starters, and they got more money than this other bunch had. Get up here, and don't tell me no again. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, if Balak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do less or more. I like that. Take your money. Sit on your money. I can't do this. But therefore I pray you tarry here this night that I may know what the Lord will say unto me more. What? Just maybe the Lord will change his mind. Maybe the Lord will see my worn out chariot, and maybe the Lord will know that I've got an 18-year-old camel that's got polio in his left kneecap, and maybe he'll change his mind. Let's see. We're not sure. Let's see. So why don't you guys spend the night? Just spend the night. I'll pray about this thing. By the way, don't ever pray about what God's already given you an answer to. And there are a lot of things, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to waste your time praying about. I've had people tell me before, well, I'm going to pray about this. There's some things that the Bible has already laid out. You don't have to pray about it. Just do what the book says. Now, there are many decisions and choices and options that we're faced with in life, yes, that you need real-time guidance. I'm aware of that. But the Lord has already given us real-time guidance for most of the major issues in life in the Bible. So let's see what happens. Verse 20. God came unto Balaam at night and said unto him, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them. What? Now he just told him in verse 12, don't go. Now he's telling him in verse number 20, go. See, God didn't want him to go. He just wanted to see if he had the character not to go. And so he says, you go. But yet the word which I shall say unto thee, thou shalt do. And Balaam rose up in the morning, saddled his ass, and went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went. You see, this guy was so enamored with the signing bonus that he didn't see behind the money. He didn't see that God was testing him. Okay, it's like you men, us guys that are married, when your wife, you ask her if you can go hunting or fishing or whatever it is, and she says, okay, go ahead. You understand she's not giving you permission, right? That's not what that is. And so the Lord was like, okay, Balaam, go. And the little fool went. And it angered the Lord because he went. Did God want him to go? No. Did he want him to curse Israel? No. And so it goes now, verse number 22, that the Lord's anger was kindled, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now, this is why it's going to get a little bit funny here. He gets on his donkey, and boogity, boogie, boogie, he's headed out the door. And he was riding on his ass, and his 2 servants were with him. So we got 3 guys and a donkey, probably 3 each. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way. So on the way down there, on the road, this donkey, mind you, sees Christ. The angel of the Lord in the Old Testament is called a theophany. And it is a pre-appearance, a pre-birth appearance of Christ. So this donkey, ladies and gentlemen, the donkey sees what Balaam doesn't see. And so this donkey sees him. And he's got his sword drawn in his hand. And the ass turned aside out of the way. That means he jumped. All right? He didn't say, oh, I'm going to, he does what horses do when they see a snake or something, he jumps. And it went out in the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. He beat her rear end. All right? I think this is so ironic. You know why he beat her? Because she would not listen to him. Exactly. He hadn't seen the irony of this yet. And so he beats this donkey. But the angel of the Lord stood in the path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side and a wall. So we got he gets this donkey back under control, gets the thing back on the road, and there's like a little alley, and he's got to go through this little alley, and there's a stone wall on each side, all right? And it's probably not very wide. And so there's a wall on that side and on this side. Verse 25. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she jumps again and catches his foot in the stirrup and crushes it up against the wall. Well, now he's ticked off. Verse number 25 says, he beat her again. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn to the left or the right. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she just crumbles up in the dirt. I mean, she just falls down in the dirt. Balaam's on top of her, and she just gives up. She just falls down. And Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. That is Old English for he beat the dickens out of her with a stick. So he's wailing on her, beating on this poor donkey. Verse 28. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass and said, now the donkey is speaking, all right? Now, I don't speak donkey, but we're about to get some donkey here. What have I done to thee that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? Would that get your attention? You're beating a cow, or you're beating your horse, or you're beating a donkey, and he turned around and said, hey, man, what's up with you? What are you doing? And verse 29, and Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me. Really? That bothers you, does it, Balaam? It bothers you that your donkey won't obey you? It bothers you that she will not go where you want her to go? Is that right? And he never apparently saw the irony of this. He said, if I had a sword, I'd kill you. This guy was mad. And the ass said unto Balaam, am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden, ever since I was thine unto this day? You've had me since I was a puppy. You have raised me. I have ridden you all over the place up here. We've gone to wherever you wanted to go. Have I ever, well, first of all, have I ever talked to you? Have I ever said anything to you? Second, have I ever not done what you wanted me to do? And he said, he's talking to this donkey now. He says, well, actually, no. So I don't know what's going on here. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand, and he bowed down on his head and fell flat on his face. I just think that is so ironic. We want everybody and everything to fall in line with what we want. And then here we are, oftentimes rebelling against what God has told us to do. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, why have you, I'm going to paraphrase this, I've got KJV like you do probably. Why you been beating your donkey, man? What's going on with that? I've come out to try to save your life. And you've rebelled, you've fought against this. And the ass saw me. You didn't, but your donkey did. And turned from me these 3 times. Unless you had turned from me, I would have killed you. So actually, the donkey saved this idiot's life. And he's a fool. First of all, he should have never left Pethor. Never. The Lord told him the first night, do not go. Do not curse these people. Don't do it. Well, the second group comes with a bigger check. And he says, well, let me pray about it before the bank closes. Let's just see. Maybe God's going to change his mind. God didn't change his mind. But he opened the door for Balaam now to make a decision based on character, folks. This was a character-driven decision that he did not make. He went anyway. God was angry at the whole situation for him going. And so now we've got a situation in our hands. He gets to Balak's house. Look at verse 36. Balak heard, finally now, that Balaam was coming, and he went out to meet him unto a city of Moab, which is in the border of Arnon, which is in the utmost of the coast. And Balak said unto Balaam, I believe I called you once before, right? Didn't I send some guys down there just a few weeks ago? Why didn't you come to me the first time? Am I not able to promote you to honor? Well, no. You're actually not. You're going to create problems for this man. He's going to allow you to do that by his own choice. And Balaam said unto Balak, Lo, I am come unto thee. Have I now any power at all to say anything? The word that God putteth in my mouth, that shall I speak. Oh, yeah, now he wants to do what God told him to do. So he should have thought about this before he even got on his donkey. And Balaam went with Balak, and they came to Kirjath-Huzoth. And Balak offered oxen and sheep, and sent to Balaam, and to the princes were with him. And let me cut through this because of time. 3 times Balak takes Balaam to the top of a little hill, and he sees Israel encamped, and the king says, curse them. And Balaam wouldn't do it. And so the king got all mad and takes him to another little spot, a little hill, and he looks down and says, now, curse them now. Maybe you didn't see them all. Curse them now. And Balaam wouldn't do it. Take him to another little hill. This is the 3rd time. And he says, curse them now. And he wouldn't do it. And Balak blows up. I mean, his hair catches on fire. He is so ticked off at this guy. And so he kicks him off and gets him back to the house, and he's just really, really mad. Now, there are 3 lessons that we can learn from Balaam. And they are, number 1, gifts without character are useless. They're useless at best, and they're dangerous at worst. This was a gifted man. He was so gifted as a prophet that his reputation somehow traveled 400 miles to the king of a foreign nation, and he heard about this. And so he was a gifted man, there's no question about that. But he wound up being a burden instead of a blessing. And God helped the man or the woman that becomes a burden to God's people instead of a blessing to God's people. But this man turned out to be a sty in their vision. And you probably know people that are gifted. They have abilities, but don't have any character. They don't have any integrity. What they do for personal promotion and gain. And that's what this guy was doing. Balaam was in love with himself. That was Balaam's problem. He wanted the money. And so he did what God told him not to do. You say, well, he didn't curse him when he got down there. He wasn't supposed to go down there. He wasn't even supposed to leave Pethor, but he did. And so, gifts without character. Do you know people, I think we've got people that are gifted on all kinds of levels, but they don't have any character. I know men that are gifted, and women that are gifted politicians or gifted speakers, don't have any character. You know any gifted musicians? People that can sing the horns off a billy goat. They don't have any character. People that are talented in all kinds of areas, from machinists to doctors and attorneys. They're gifted people, but they don't have any character. Bernie Madoff was a gifted financial planner, but he didn't have any character, and he stole $50 billion. So I don't care how gifted you are. It doesn't matter what you can do. It doesn't matter who you are, what your name is, how much money you have. It doesn't matter how skilled you are. Without character, you're a burden instead of a blessing. And the second thing is this. Money without integrity is a curse. What was Balaam's problem? Money. If they hadn't offered him anything, this story probably would have never developed in the Scriptures. And so nobody can serve two masters. No one can do that. You've got to make a choice at some point who you're going to serve in life. And so what you think about money is what you think about life. And so here was a guy that was willing to put himself in a position that God told him not to get into because of money. And it wound up being an absolute tragedy for his life. Unethical gain, it's the soil where heartache and people, people hear preachers talk about this stuff, and can I just shoot straight with you? There are a lot of people think preachers just full of bull. You guys, y'all just like to tell these stories, and you just want to get people to give money to your church, and they have no clue that what a lot of preachers deal with is truth that's eternal, and that there's nothing involved but that man wanting God's will done in your life. There are preachers like this all over the country. And now I don't realize that there are preachers that have done just as wrong as Bernie Madoff and Harvey Weinstein. I'm aware of that. This creates a culture in which churches and ministries are not trusted. Churches, ministers, pastors, missionaries, they become the targets in communities and in cities and states and whatever. There was a time when churches had a more significant role to play in the life of a community than they do now. And I put a lot of the blame for that on churches. We've done stupid things, preachers have done ignorant things through the years, but not all. Not all. And so money without integrity is a curse. And here's the third thing. Beliefs without behavior are deadly. Balaam heard God's voice, saw God's face, spoke God's word, but he didn't live it. He didn't live it. The issue in most people's lives is not what to believe. It's how to behave. How many people do the wrong thing? They believe there's a God. They believe in heaven. They believe in hell. They believe the Bible's the Word of God. They believe all this stuff, but they still do the wrong thing. A lot of major issues in a lot of people's lives are already settled. You know what I'm saying? They're already settled. You've been in church for years. You've listened to the radio, Moody, and you've done all this stuff. There's a great chasm between what this man believed and how he behaved. This is the great divide right here. This is a Grand Canyon in Balaam's life. The first night when these guys showed up, they went to bed, turned the lights out. Balaam goes out to his prayer spot and he says, Lord, what do you want me to do? And the first question God asked him was, who are these guys? Well, they're from King Balak down there in Moab. That should have answered his question right there, first of all. And he said, I know why they're here. Don't go with them. Don't go. End of story, right? Nope. He sends them home. The king says, no, I'm not taking that as an answer. He sends the second squad back with more honor than the first squad, had more money than the first squad, and he says, well, I'll tell you what. Why don't y'all spend the night? I'll pray about it again. I'll pray about it again. And so he prays, and I think probably the Lord shocked him. And the Lord said, okay, go. And Balaam was like, go? Go. Oh, wow, yes, I want to go. Get to cash this check, Wow, hit the bank before I leave town. A new camel, everything was just great. And as he got on this old worn-out donkey that had been with him all his life and is headed out, boogity, 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 400 miles to the south, God's anger was kindled against him, and Balak didn't even know it, or Balaam didn't even know it. Didn't know it. On the way, Jesus stands in front of his donkey, and the donkey sees him. And Balak is just like, da-doop-dee-doo. He just had no clue. Looked right, just didn't see a thing. And the donkey 3 times just leaves the ground, jumps, and finally crushes his foot against a wall. And the 3rd time he just falls down in there, just collapses in just a pile of dirt, and he gets off of him, and he beats him with a stick. And the donkey turns around and says, man, what are you doing? What is the matter with you? And Balaam, there's no, I guess he was so mad it didn't shock him. And so he's carrying on a conversation with his donkey. And I'm wondering what these 2 servants are thinking, But you talking to me about, no, I'm not talking, I'm talking to the donkey. And there's just, money without integrity is a curse. Belief without behavior is deadly. And, oh my goodness, gifts without character are useless. And so when you look, you don't always have to learn from somebody that's wise and godly and, a person of character and integrity. Those are not the only teachers in life. You can learn some real good lessons by looking at the drunk downtown passed out on the sidewalk. You can learn some real good lessons by looking at the meth addicts that don't have any teeth and their skin is destroyed and their families are destroyed. You can learn some real good lessons by just walking down the streets of this city or any other city for that matter and just see the need and see decisions, drive out to the prison and see guys who have had their freedoms denied them. That'll tell you, don't do that. Don't make that decision. And so there are teachers everywhere, Proverbs talks about this thing of wisdom standing at the top of the street and crying, shouting, screaming at the top of her lungs, listen to me, listen to me. And people just like Balaam, they never see it. Just walk right on by making those decisions, and life is just crushing them. Anyway, thank you for being here. Good to have Jack and Betty back from Texas. What was the temperature like when y'all left? Was it cold? It was 20, but it's a dry cold, right? That's a dry cold. And good to see y'all. Thank you so much for being here. Let's be dismissed. Lord, thank you for your goodness. Thank you for what we were able to learn from people that didn't do the right thing, and may we never do that. In Jesus' name, amen.